To set the stage of Samson's birth, Israel was under the rule and oppression of the Philistines. Again, the Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight, so the Lord handed them over to the Philistines 40 years. At this point, the author introduces us to a man named Manoah, whose wife was unable to conceive. The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You will give birth to a son, and that son, that miracle, would be Israel's next deliverer." This is a unique event that happens several times in the Bible. This promised boy would grow up to save Israel from the power of the Philistines. Angel told Manoah's wife to raise the child according to the Nazirite vow. As long as they remain under their Nazirite vow, they must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, not even the seeds or skins. During the entire period of their Nazirite vow, no razor may be used on their head. They must be holy until the period of their dedication to the Lord is over. They must let their hair grow long. That meant her son would be consecrated to God as a Nazirite, even while he was still in the womb. Manoah's wife named her child Samson. God blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him, readying Samson for the work prepared for him. Samson made some questionable life decisions for a man who had been set apart for God's service since birth, ultimately proving that God can use a person in spite of himself. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a young Philistine woman there. He told his parents that he wanted to marry her. His parents tried to speak wisdom into his life by telling him he should not marry someone who was not part of God's people. But they didn't know that his interest in this particular woman was from the Lord, who wanted the Philistines to provide an opportunity for a confrontation. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Samson chose to pose a riddle to the Philistines at a feast that was most likely supposed to function as his engagement party. The prize for answering the riddle within a week would be 30 changes of clothes. In biblical days, an additional set of clothing was a sign of honor and dignity. Samson, thinking about his recent kill and the honey that accompanied it, exclaimed, "Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet." 3 days they could not give the answer. The Philistines grew enraged when they couldn't figure out what it meant. The men threatened to kill Samson's bride, who was also one of their own, and her family, unless she could get Samson to reveal her the answer and share it with them. Frightened, she wept in front of Samson for 7 days, and finally he couldn't take it anymore because she had nagged him so much. As a result, he revealed the solution to her. Later, when the Philistine men parroted the answer, Samson knew how they had obtained it. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and he killed 30 Philistine men in another town, giving their clothes to these men to keep the deal he'd struck. He returned home after that, but not with his wife. After some time, Samson brought about further destruction on the Philistines. He wanted to visit his wife, but her father would not let him enter her room. He had given her to another man because he assumed Samson was not happy with her. He destroyed their crops by catching 300 foxes, tying their tails together with rope and torches, setting them on fire, and releasing them into their fields. The Philistines retaliated by slaying Samson's wife and father. And Samson, in turn, avenged the murders with his bare hands. Samson said to them, "Since you've acted like this, I swear that I won't stop until I get my revenge on you." He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. Then he went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Etam. The Philistines besieged a village in Judah to pay Samson back while he was hiding in a cave. To pacify the Philistines, 3,000 men of Judah went to arrest Samson, saying that he had brought trouble on them by riling up the Philistine oppressors. Don't miss the irony here. They chose to deliver over to the Philistines the man God had sent to save them from the Philistines. Samson agreed to go along with them only after they promised not to kill him themselves, so they bound him with 2 new ropes and let him up from the rock. When the Philistines saw Samson tied approaching, they screamed out. But at that precise moment, the Lord's Spirit descended upon Samson in a strong way. This was bad news for the Philistines. You don't want the Spirit of the Lord to fall down heavenly on someone you're fighting. Samson's foes were outnumbered because he was empowered by God's Spirit. Given his strength, the ropes used to bind him were insignificant. He found a fresh donkey jawbone and used it to slaughter 1,000 men. He was able to accomplish what would have been impossible without the Lord's help. After finishing his judgment on the Philistines, Samson got extremely thirsty and cried out to the Lord. The Lord graciously replied by restoring his vigor by creating a spring there. It was dubbed Spring of the One Who Cried Out by Samson, and he judged Israel 20 years. Samson's personal choices become even more concerning at this point in the narrative. Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute and went to bed with her. Now, for years, the people of Israel had prostituted themselves with other gods. They had blatantly compromised with the surrounding culture and betrayed the Lord. And by this season of his life, Samson, the leader, was openly living in a way that reflected what Israel had been doing. This trend would be his downfall. The Philistines in Gaza discovered Samson was with the prostitute and thought they had him trapped. They guarded the town's exit, but when Samson was ready to leave, he simply took hold of the doors of the city gate along with the 2 gateposts and pulled them out, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and took them to the top of the mountain overlooking Hebron. You or I couldn't carry these massive doors on blocks distance on level ground. This scene serves as proof that though Samson was outside of the will of God in what he was doing, God had not left him. Yet. Some time later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. It is not clear whether Delilah was a Philistine woman, but her loyalties lay with them and their silver. The Philistine leaders asked her to persuade Samson to confide in her about where his great strength came from, so that they could overpower him, tie him up, and make him helpless. Judges 16 verse 5. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "If you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him, so we may tie him up and subdue him, each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." 3 times Delilah tried to learn his secret, while the Philistines lay waiting to ambush him. Each time Samson gave her a false story about the source of his strength, but she steadily wore him down. In the end, Delilah used the very trick Samson's bride had once employed when she betrayed him to the Philistines. She pleaded, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me?" She also accused him of making fun of her. Of course, she wouldn't set him up like this if she truly loved him. He finally gave her the whole truth because she nagged him day after day, until he was worn out. With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I've been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." Delilah was not one to waste time. While he slept on her lap, she shaved Samson's head. And because the Philistine leaders were hiding in the shadows and had brought the silver, she was free to count her filthy money while the deed was done. Once Samson had been made helpless, we read these sad, pitiful words. When he awoke from his sleep, he said, "I will escape as I did before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Samson made the mistake of prioritizing his relationship with Delilah over his devotion to God, and it cost him dearly. This is proof that no human relationship, no matter how intimate, can never be more important than your relationship with God. Samson paid a high price for his transgression. Samson's eyes were gouged out, he was shackled, and he was forced to labor in prison by the Philistines. In other words, God's adversaries had taken command of his every move. This serves as a reminder that when God is removed from the equation, Satan takes control of the issue. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. We get a sense here that God wasn't finished with Samson just yet. Why did we need to be told that his hair, which was the source of his power, had started to regrow? His hair's return was an outward symbol that he was inwardly repentant and turning back to God. His repentance would become apparent in his upcoming prayer to the Lord. To capture your full attention, God sometimes has to take you as low as you can possibly go. They were all set to rejoice that their deity had delivered their foe to them. At their gathering, the Philistines were cheerful. They summoned Samson to entertain them, placing him between the temple's pillars. They are putting themselves in a position to fail by doing so. The temple was packed, and there was probably 3,000 people on the roof. Recognizing this, Samson begged to God for one last time to empower him so that he could bring the Philistines' roof down on them. He pushed with all of his power, and the temple collapsed on the leaders and the entire populace. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Thus, Samson killed more of Israel's oppressors that day than he had killed all the rest of his days. Samson, unfortunately, had succumbed to the idolatrous culture around him and made bad decisions. Nonetheless, in Hebrews 11, verses 32 through 33, Samson is mentioned in the Hall of Faith, along with other upright Old Testament heroes such as Daniel. And every heart should be filled with hope as a result of this inclusion. While Samson was far from flawless, he did get one thing right. He believed God could use him to carry out his will. Therefore, let us trust God, submit to his agenda for our lives, and give him everything we have.